Well, welcome to Rooted and Relevant. I know it's usually in the morning and it is afternoon, and if you're on the Eastern time zone, it's well into the afternoon. But we had a little technical trouble doing this, and as you can tell by the fact that I'm not making eye contact with you, that I'm driving down the road. But shout out to Sandy, my technician, who finally figured out how to make this work on my wife's phone. And so we left Jonah having been woken up from his sleep because the storm was raging on the sea. And yesterday we talked about the fact that Jonah was asleep while others around him were in danger. And unfortunately, that's true of too many Christians today who are likewise spiritually asleep while so many around them are in danger. Well, today we are going to see Jonah wide awake and facing the consequences for his poor decision making. I've entitled this one, When God Disciplines. Sometimes we think discipline is a negative thing. And if we've been on the receipt of discipline, we typically believe that it is a negative thing. Well, it's intended to hurt, but it is always supposed to help. So when God disciplines, He's not proving a point, He's not making His case. He certainly isn't getting even, and He's not proving that He's bigger or stronger. Unfortunately, some who discipline, whether it's parents or whether it's employers, sometimes they discipline for all the wrong reasons. They're self exalting, they're self protecting, they're self promoting. In other words, people are so obsessed with themselves that they've taken personal offense to whatever has been wronged, and that's becomes the driver for their discipline. Nothing could be further from what God designed discipline to be. And yet we've probably all been guilty of it. Discipline, from God's perspective, has really only two. Number one, it is to establish a view of God. And then number two, it is to establish a proper view of morality. In other words, creator and the design how life is supposed to work. And he of morals himself decided what is right and what is wrong. And so discipline is to draw attention back to God as the designer and ultimate authority, and that He is the very standard of righteousness. He's the very standard of morality. Whether it's like the discipline really as the designer and to his moral fiber of deciding what is right and what is wrong. Discipline is to help us to establish that this is a bad path and I need to change course. Well, that's exactly what we find God doing for Jonah. Jonah is trying to run from the presence of the Lord. In verses 8 through 16, and I won't try reading them while I'm driving down the road and I don't have them memorized. So you'll have to look them up on your own, but you're familiar with the story. And the mariners, the other people on the ship, basically have said, why are you doing this? Because Jonah had already established, I respect God. I fear the Lord. I'm a servant of God, but I'm running from him. And the reason why the mariners knew that is because he had told them. He had told them, I don't want to do what God has called me to do. I don't want to help these people. Uh, Jonah is going to prove that he was a bitter, angry person. And he did not want God's mercy to be extended to those that he was angry with. We're going to find that as we study this book. But why does God discipline Jonah? Well, it's to help Jonah understand God knows best. He's the designer. He called him because he knows what is best. But the second thing is he told him what was right. The right thing for Jonah to do was to go and preach to those in Nineveh. And so Jonah violated what was right and did what was wrong. And so God's discipline is there to get him back on course. And so Jonah basically says, you know what? If you don't want to die, you're going to have to throw me overboard. Well, the guys didn't want to do that. And so the Bible says they tried even harder to row to shore to get to land, but it wasn't working. So they literally ask God to forgive them for what they're about to do. And they throw Jonah overboard, and the seas calm. And immediately they realized a right view of God, and they made vows to God. There was revival taking place on that ship. Well, remember that discipline is never going to be about us as parents. It is really always about God. And so, if the only thing that our kids ever learn is what makes it mad or what makes him glad, we've missed the purpose of discipline. We need to point them to God's marvelous designs that cannot be improved on. And so, Jonah's story today, one of the lessons we learn is what is the purpose of discipline and why does God discipline? It is to establish a right view of God and a proper view of morality. And those two things are going to be accomplished. Now, tomorrow we're going to look at verse 17, and we're going to see where God disciplines, there is always grace available. And the grace for Jonah is going to be seen in a really big fish. But I won't spoil tomorrow's lesson. But remember today, God doesn't discipline to hurt us. He really disciplines to help us have a right view of Him and a right view of morality. God bless you. Hope you have a great day. I look forward to seeing you again tomorrow.